did through the budget conference. So one of the things we are doing now is refining the projected costs of the market adjustments. And to the extent that the projections are lower, then that helps bridge that gap between the revenues available and the expenditures. The other thing is that we're proposing to suspend the vehicle replacement fund for 2008, 2009. And that means that essentially in this next year, at the end of the year, there would not be funds to be able to replace vehicles. So it's kind of taking a vacation, if you will, from the vehicle replacement fund, and that results in savings. This has been done before in dire situations, and it's not something you can sustain for a number of years in a row, but it's certainly something that can be done on a periodic basis. The other thing we did was held the line on capital projects and fixed assets. And people had to have very clear reasons of the necessity for anything in those areas. Because, you know, when things get tight, you don't remodel the family room or whatever else the issues are when you look at it from a family standpoint. And then we're applying the insurance reimbursement to the Mill Creek Dam project so that we don't have to budget additional general fund money for that particular area. And then we come to staffing reductions, which is another way in which one balances the budget. And so there are a number of things here. No net new positions created. And this is one of the few times, I mean, even in some other budget years, there have been one or two positions because of priorities that have come along or whatever. But we've been very clear that we're not adding new positions into the budget, and although that's a disappointment to a number of departments that we're hoping, given workload issues, et cetera, that's just not something that we can do, particularly when we're talking about cuts in areas. The other thing we're doing is reducing, and this is a number that's come out of the budget conferences, 58 formerly funded permanent positions, and 4 of them are currently filled. I want to stress, these are not the ghost positions that were talked about before. These are positions that were funded and now are not funded. And I think it's a tribute to the departments that they have been holding some of these positions vacant rather than filling them, knowing that we might very well have this discussion in the future. And these are throughout the county. So the expectation is that this will be addressed and that one can look at possible reassignments or whatever, but this is what we're talking about. For those positions that are on the books that are unfunded and haven't been filled in a while, those are the positions where, you know, there's going to be some cleanup. But there are departments who operate from the premise of salary savings. And what that means is that you leave the positions in. At any given time, they might be filled, but at any given time, 10% of them, but different 10%, might not be filled just because of turnover and the length of time it takes to fill positions, et cetera. So, you know, it's not going to reduce every single vacant position, but it will clean up the roles. And in this particular case, we're talking about getting deleting formally funded permanent positions. Oh, yeah. We're also talking about reducing use of extra help positions whenever possible. That's certainly a salary cost, and in the case you talk about layoffs, the expectation is that extra help positions go first before you touch permanent positions. No, we're not saying get rid of all extra help, but it is an area that can be savings in. We're also talking about no increases in overtime in those departments that use that. The expectation is that departments will manage to be assigned overtime, and that they will be cautious, because overtime is a very inefficient way of purchasing staff time. And then we are researching additional position reductions and/or mandatory time off. The extent to which we will need to do that will depend on how much of the gap we're able to close, and we'll be able to speak very specifically about that on June 17th. Right now, what we're doing is researching, and I'd have to say that almost every day there's some kind of shift, sometimes shift up in revenues, sometimes shift down, and on the appropriation side, those shifts as well. So we're waiting until it kind of settles out, but that's what we're looking at in terms of staffing reductions. Okay, geographic data. There was a specific request to look at geographic data, and we gave a small chart to departments to complete, and we got a variety of results because in some cases it was difficult for them. The costs aren't necessarily broken out by geographic area. They might know which staff are assigned geographically, but they may or may not have their client numbers broken down geographically. So I'll say we began with a collection of geographic data in the budget conferences in May. For the majority of departments, in particular general government, internal support, and then small departments like, say, air quality, they don't have post offices or staff, but they do serve county-wide.